Hey guys, Hannah here, and I am thrilled to be bringing another VIC Writing Task 1 video to y'all. As you may recall my terrible joke in the bar charts video, we are going to talk about pie charts today. I have mixed feelings for these because when they're simple, there's too little to describe, but when there is a lot of information, you can write a 2-page report without even realizing it. Okay, let's move on and look at the chart's features. Most of the time, pie charts show percentages, but other times they can show numbers or nothing at all. But the great thing about pie charts is that we can still see different proportions, thus can still make sufficient descriptions and comparisons. Just remember that the full pie is always 100%. Pie charts provide quite less information compared to the charts we discussed, so there are usually multiple charts in the exam. These may describe different categories or different time periods. Only mention major trends when coming across pie charts showing changes over time. If not, stick to the classic comparing and contrasting method. I assume you have learned all the steps by heart, so I'm gonna skip the structure revision for now. Personally, I wouldn't freak out if I were to see this chart in my exam, but some told me otherwise.
Hey, you said it yourself. This pie thing doesn't tell me enough information. I don't have anything to say.
Well, you're not the only one. Very often, test takers spend a long time learning about the language of trends when they prepare for task 1, and this rarely applies to a pie chart. In this case, you need the language of percentages. I've collected some very useful ways to vary your vocabulary when it comes to describing and comparing pie charts. You can use fractions, synonyms like proportions and ratios, or these ones. Screenshots are highly recommended at the moment, by the way. If the percentage are not as exact, then you can use qualifiers to make sure your description remains accurate. And this table presents some examples of how you can change percentages to other phrases. I also want to remind you that percentage is more correct than percent, and amount is correctly used only with uncountable nouns, and the variation of countable ones is number. Got everything saved to your phone or whatever? Good. Now let's move on to a real question. The pie charts show the results of a survey into the most popular leisure activities in the United States of America in 1999 and 2009, summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features, and make comparisons where relevant. Now, of course, you can use our paraphrasing method to make the introduction, but let's face it, there aren't many things to paraphrase. So, to make a Band 9 intro for a pie chart report, the Q&A method is recommended, meaning you should consider these questions and include a brief answer in the intro. How many categories are there in each chart? For this, just count. Are the categories the same in each chart? For this one, just read the keys. And lastly, are there any changes in the percentages between the years? To answer this, look at the colors. Now let's take a look at the clear difference between our original intro and the new one we created using those questions. These two charts illustrate how the preferred leisure activities of Americans changed between 1999 and 2009. Generally speaking, while the list of activities remained almost identical over the decade, there were a number of changes in their relative popularity. Now that's a great start. But if you're still having trouble with a short intro or a report with under 150 words, you can search for IELTS Simon's video on YouTube, which shows you how to build long sentences and your problems solved. It is absolutely not the case of long sentences good, short sentences bad, but desperate times call for desperate measures. DCIELTS.com also has a great post comparing long and short sentences, and you should totally check it out. The overview comes next as usual with 2 sentences and 2 main points. Still in the theme of a Q&A, we need to answer these questions to narrow down the 2 necessary details. What's the biggest and smallest numbers? What's gone up and down? What hasn't changed and what's new? Based on the questions, I'd say we should go for the categories walking and yoga since these obviously contrasted. It is immediately evident that walking was by some distance the most popular pastime in both years, accounting for just under a third of the preferences expressed. Of equal note is that by 2009, yoga had disappeared from the list of preferred activities and had been replaced by weightlifting, which was chosen by 1 in 10 Americans. Pay attention to verbs that is always used to describe pie charts like account for and its synonym makeup. There are also advanced expressions in the overview, ones like it is immediately evident and of equal note, which should be added to your vocabulary as well. And chosen by 1 in 10 Americans is a creative way to express 10%. But please, don't write things like weightlifting was 10%. Next, we divide the categories into groups for the details paragraphs, or in this case, paragraph, because I feel like we only need 1 today. Focusing on the similarities and differences, I also suggest comparing items and years together in the same paragraphs, but do this in a logical way. So I can see that there was a striking increase in the number of swimmers, bringing it up to the 2nd place with soccer players. Contrasting is important, so we'll mention cycling versus camping, along with categories that also saw a decrease. Okay, so let's put those into the report. Among the less popular activities, the most notable development was that the proportion of people who went swimming doubled, making it equal as 2nd in popularity with soccer at 18%. In stark contrast, around as half as many Americans went cycling in 2009 as compared to 10 years earlier, with the result that it became less popular than camping at 7 and 9% respectively. Likewise, the number of people who went jogging and did aerobics also dropped significantly, with less than 5% of respondents to the survey choosing them. Although there are only 3 paragraphs, I think this report deserves a band 10. This was not recommended in the previous lessons, but for simple pie charts, you should say at least 1 thing about each and every category if possible. Do this sensibly, and it will help increase the length of your report and, more importantly, your score. Oh, and the category called Other, which is unfortunately not included in our sample in question, is not important and should be mentioned only once at the end of your report. Phew, you thought this was going to be easy as pie? It goes to show that the languages and methods applied for task 1 vary greatly. And you know what they say, practice makes perfect. But do you know what is almost never perfect? Most IELTS reports describing process charts or flow charts, which happen to be next week's topic. But that's it for pie charts though. Until next time, bye!